Hi, this is Derek Jordan. Welcome to the World Fusion Show, where we bring you the leading innovators in world fusion music. Today, my guest is Jim Matus, composer and producer, and he plays an unusual instrument, which he calls the laoutar. It's an electric Greek lute based on the laouto, a Greek instrument, and it's tuned like a mandocello, and it's a wonderful sounding instrument. Jim has his own take on it, which you'll get to hear later on in the show. Welcome, Jim, to the World Fusion Show.
Thanks, Derek, for having me on.
So great to have you. How are you feeling today?
Feeling good.
Yeah. Very nice. So just tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into music, what was your journey in terms of discovery and your inspiration?
Well, I didn't come from a musical family. I basically didn't pick up the guitar till I was 14. And unlike most kids in the 60s, I didn't start out in a rock band. I started out playing in a wedding band. I actually right
to the bottom.
Worked my way through high school playing on weekends in this wedding band called Custer's Last Band, which a name that I'm proud that I came up with.
Oh, nice.
And from there, I sort of started to realize that I want to do this the rest of my life, and applied to get into Berklee College of Music in the early 70s. Miraculously, I got in because I barely knew how to read music. But eventually, I hooked up with an amazing teacher at Berklee, Pat Metheny. I was one of the lucky ones to be there while he was still teaching.
Yeah.
So I studied with Metheny for a while. I studied guitar with John Schofield for a while. And I feel like that time in the 70s, that fusion was, the time of world fusion was actually getting a start. Weather Report, Herbie Hancock, Shakti, Mahavishnu, all that stuff was seeping into my brain at the time. And it eventually kind of mixed together. I didn't really start writing music in that style until the late 90s. Up till then, I was playing in rock bands, fusion bands, progressive rock bands. And the first time I seriously started writing that kind of music was a band called Paranoise that I had in Hartford. And we would take loops from people like, vocal loops from people like Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, Hamza al-Din, master musicians of Jajuka. And we actually would create loops and play along with those loops. And I remember one time, one of the loops just kind of stopped.
Oh, wow.
And we were all, and me being the leader of the band, I didn't know what to do. So I just went, "Thank you," as if that was like planned that way. And eventually I got kind of tired of playing with loops. So I actually would rearrange these songs without the loops and learn how to sing and play them myself. So that's how I sort of got into Middle Eastern music, Mediterranean music, North African music.
Yeah.
And I started writing in that style by the early 2000s. I was kind of doing that.
So at that time, you were mostly playing guitar, electric guitar, and then you found this cool instrument that we're going to hear later you call the laoutar, which is, most people just say, "Hey, that's an electric guitar." Well, not exactly. And why don't you tell us about the laoutar?
Well, you pretty much summed it up in the beginning, but what brought me to want to create that instrument was playing an actual laouto. I had a studio again in Hartford, and I was producing albums of traditional Greek music. This guy who was born on a Greek island, he had an amazing collection of instruments, and he would come in and play these instruments. I picked up the laouto and just fell in love with it because it was tuned the way I would tune my guitar at the time, to a C tuning. And eventually I found the limits of the laouto. Live it would go out of tune. So I had this instrument specially made. Yeah. And it sounds like I had no idea it was going to sound that good.
I love it. It's a great instrument. So now we're going to go to the first video, and this is a trip that you took to Latvia, and it's a piece of yours. Why don't you tell us about this music we're going to hear?
It's a group that was put together. We got a grant to do this special tour in the city of Riga, the capital of Latvia. Mm-hmm. And we did six concerts based on the idea of the Amber Road, which was a route that went from Egypt all the way up to Latvia, the Baltic Sea. Trade route.
Yeah, yeah.
They would trade in amber, and amber was like gold at this time. So we picked about 10 countries, and we would do traditional songs from each country, and we would write music around it and created this whole concert based on the Amber Road.
Yeah.
And we were lucky enough to get Shane Shanahan to play percussion.
He's great. And
Timo Vanainen, who's one of the best kantala players in Finland, to join us. So we had this amazing band. This particular song we're gonna see is based on a Polish folk song, and the song, the music I wrote was called "The Red Baker's Wife," but we superimposed the Polish lyrics on my tune.
All right, and there's a singer too, right?
Oh, I forgot to mention her. My wonderful partner, Lila Salins, who. She wasn't born in Latvia, but her parents, she is of Latvian extraction. Her parents were Latvian.
She speaks the language.
She speaks fluent Latvian, and she's a wonderful classically trained singer. And what more can I say?
All right, that's good. Let's go to the video.
Boisz na miłego czekam, pod jaworem stoję. Cimbajri drura la la, cimbajri drura la la, cimbajri drura la la, cimbajri.
That's great. I love that. That's beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
Really nice. So we met because of our mutual friend, Tony Vacca, who called me up one day and said, hey, there's this guy, he plays this weird instrument, Jim Matus. He's really cool, and I think we should start a band, a trio with Jim. And I'm like, Tony, like, I'm in so many bands. I don't need another band. I need another band like I need a hole in the head, right? So Tony said, no, Derek, just check it out. So I invited you over to my house with Tony. We set up all the recording gear to, what the hell, record and see what happened. And magic happened, actually.
That's right.
Magic really happened. And we recorded we made up stuff on the spot. We recorded a bunch of things. 4 of those pieces that we made up ended up on our first album. Amazing. Like, unheard
Which we
of.
recorded at my studio.
That's right. Later. But the material, it was right there. The chemistry was so obvious, and like there it was. So it's a really cool band. We use spontaneous improvisation to work together and create our material from that. I call Impulse Ensemble a world fusion power trio because we are a bit loud and electrified. I play electric violin mostly. Tony gets all over his percussion and balafon, and you do your laoutar. So, tell us about what you think about Impulse.
Yeah, it's kind of a magical combination of 3 guys who are, well-seasoned, extremely diverse experience in all kinds of music. Tony and I had a common sort of ground, has some common ground in that we were both playing kind of free jazz in the 70s and 80s. And we both worked with Don Cherry. And so when Tony and I met, before I met you, we had this instant connection, and we did a few duos together.
Yeah.
And he told me the same thing about, you got to meet this guy, Derek, we got to form a band. And a lot of those tunes those pieces that we did originally became more and more refined and turned into like arrangements that we play, we still play to this day. But every time we play them, they're completely different.
Of course, why not?
Yeah, keep it interesting.
That's
right?
great. Yeah. So let's go to the next video, Jim. We're gonna go watch, this one is a piece of yours called Cloud Call. mostly these days you've been doing a lot of solo work, and you're trying to really develop more your own unique solo sound. Tell us about your current work with your solo work.
Well, since I found myself with this unique instrument that literally no one else is playing, people are playing mandocellos, but it's usually old-timey music or traditional stuff. So I set out to create a repertoire for the laoutar. And in the last 3 or 4 years, I've written maybe about 25, 30 tunes. And some of them have, a world fusion sound to it. Some of them have a jazzy sound. Some of them very kind of ethereal, spacey. I'm trying to create a wide palette of different styles for this instrument.
Yeah.
And I did an album with drummer Doug Ranieri,
Yeah.
laoutar and drums. I did a solo laoutar, and I also did an album with 3 different percussionists, 4 different percussionists. One of which was Tony, Michel Mushabek, who's a Middle Eastern player.
Yeah. Yeah.
But right now, mostly when I play the instrument, I'm doing it solo, and I found that playing, nothing against playing with other cats, man. I mean, I love playing with other musicians, but there's a freedom. I don't know how much solo playing you've done that comes where you're able to just sort of spontaneously go wherever you want, and if you mess something up, nobody knows. You just keep going in that direction. You don't have to stick to the arrangement. And I found it's like, what was I waiting for my whole life? I should have been doing this so much, longer ago. So I'm really into the solo laoutar.
Yeah, it's a very cool instrument for that. So is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience right now?
Well, I also have a new project with my partner Lila that you saw in the Latvian video.
Sure.
It's called the Matus Salons Marching Band. And we've got a bunch of YouTube videos up there, and we're just starting to get out there and play around in the western Massachusetts Valley area. And we call that progressive folk chamber music.
Yeah.
And we're still doing Impulse, I assume.
We are, sure, absolutely.
So that's, I'm just constantly evolving and trying to,
sure,
roll with the punches.
Yeah, that's how life is. We have one more video. Let's go to that, okay? So let's take a look at this one.
It was here we first met on this wet boulevard, where the beggars and alley cats plead. Now my longing for you will soon trample me down as wild horses in a stampede. Yes, my longing for you will soon trample me down as wild horses in a stampede.
Very nice. Very, very nice. And Shane was also in that video.
Yeah, that was Shane. And that was Lila, and that was me playing the laouto.
Yeah, okay, not the laoutar.
The acoustic,
Not the electric.
Yeah.
So Jim, I just really want to thank you so much for coming today and sharing your music with us and your really cool instrument. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for, again, it was great. It was fun.
It's really great. And now we're going to do, as we usually do, some live in the studio playing to end the show. And that's...
No!
Don't say no. Anyway, all right. Well, very good. Thank you. This is Derek Jordan. Thank you once again for joining us today on the World Fusion Show. And remember, think globally, listen locally, and support independent music.